Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Ken Pamela. He is a technology thought leader and CEO of RevStar. Welcome to the show, Ken.
AJ, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
You are welcome to the show, Ken. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are trying to discuss here. We'll be talking about ethics and AI innovation. So, my first question, Ken, is to understand. Firstly, you talk about common misconceptions about all innovation and artificial intelligence transforming businesses today. So, I want to understand those misconceptions as per you that people can have in their minds.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is that this AI is inherently unbiased, right? That it just makes ethical decisions because it's not a human being. That's just not true, right? It depends on who is training this AI, right? Is it a diverse group of people that's training it? What data is being put in there? So it's not, it's not always comparing apples to apples either, right? An AI trained by one team could behave very differently than another. So I think that's the biggest misconception, is that you can just inherently trust, these AI tools, and that they're not bringing the same bias that humans have.
Okay. Okay. So you mean we can trust AI or not trust? Because either ways, a lot of platforms are saying beforehand itself that, listen, they can have a tendency to hallucinate, so do not trust them entirely. But I want to understand from you, what do you exactly mean by that?
Yeah, I think, and the hallucination is really just how the AI works, right? It's looking for, these are statistical errors, right? It's looking for what's the next best syntactical match. So that it's just in how the technology is built, right? But why you would trust an AI over another really goes to into the how it's built, right? So I always draw a parallel to food. When you go shop for food, you look at the label. Not a lot of people do, unfortunately, right? Which is probably the same thing happens with some of these AI tools. Chat GPT popped up, people ran to it, just started throwing their data in it. And I'm not saying it's inherently a bad tool, but you should know how it works, right? So when you look at the ingredients, again, who made this AI, what data was it trained with? So, just like you may go to the grocery store, pick up a certain food, put it back down and say, I don't want to eat something that has certain ingredients in it. You have to do your homework and then decide, do you trust, the company that is making these AI tools, and do you want to use them?
Right, right. So the whole idea, dilemma for a lot of people, whether they are using AI or using less AI or no AI, but the whole dilemma in several parts of the world, including in India, is that we just don't know uh, where this AI is going. What are the other forms of AI that can come in? Already there were the big thing was that in terms of the jobs, now it is very much, people were earlier talking in slightly hushed tones about the amount of jobs that will be impacted. Now even those numbers are coming. So the people are saying, some people who are defending in their own manner, rightfully, as per that, it will not only just take jobs, it will also create jobs. And so jobs will be gone for people who do not know AI, and it will get created for people. And then there is this whole explanation, understanding of a lot of things. I want to understand your position on this. From where do you see this AI stuff as it is? But the fear is more not just about now, but also going forward. And that is what is keeping a lot of people on the fence sitting part of position.
Yeah, the interesting thing about AI is it's used in our everyday lives, and it's been used in our everyday lives for a while. If you look at Amazon, how they manage their supply chain, or how they recommend products, you can be turned down for alone because an AI risk model said you're not, a good applicant, right? So this stuff's been used. When you start to look at some of the newer technologies like Gen AI and some of the deeper learning and the advanced decision making, I think that's where people start drawing parallels to like, okay, it could replace my job. If I'm a content writer, Chat GPT can write content. There's AI that can make music, right? So I think that's where some of the fear comes in, with this is going to replace my job. And what I say to that is you had the same thing in the industrial revolution, right? Yeah, jobs were replaced with more automation, but there were also new jobs created. So if you're in technology, you're not in technology, these are the careers to be looking at. Prompt engineering, how to train models. So yeah, it causes a pivot, so it can be frightening, but there's a lot of opportunity out there, right? And we're just at the forefront. I mean, most people are using, to these tools for very basic things. We don't see a lot of like full on AI agents running in companies yet. A lot of people are just figuring out how to roll out Microsoft Copilot for their Office 365, right? So we're in the infancy stage. You have plenty of time to learn these technologies, be prepared for these future jobs. And I think it's like anything. I've been in tech a long time. Tech looks a lot different than when I started 20 years ago. So you were always, kind of have this call to learn new things.
Right, right. So I want to understand when we look at AI, and how do we look at it in terms of AI innovation? What is innovation? Is it the upgradation of models, or is it something new that we can expect? Right now, we have got, you see, some players, OpenAI, but again, Microsoft has a lot of stake there. Microsoft being, Bard now, Gemini, Perplexity, Anthropic, Claude. There again, Amazon has put in a lot of money now. So Apple has is going on acquisitions and all. So I want to understand then, where is the innovation part? How do we understand innovation in terms of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I think navigating which one of these tools to use is important. So aligning the right tool for the right job. When you look at, let's say, an Amazon, they have a lot of model as a service offerings, which are great. So you can pick different models. So having diversity there in the model set you use. So some of it, will allow us to innovate faster, right? So when you think how long it would take to build one of those base models in the past, now I can pick one up and I can start solving problems more quickly, right? I can take my data, feed it into the model as a service, and start to build solutions a lot faster. So I can kind of skip that first stage. And so it's like anything. When I first started coding, right, we had to do a lot of basic functions, and then there's a lot more frameworks, more abstraction, where I could come in and solve more complicated problems. So it'll snowball where you're starting to see full on like low code model platforms now, right? So it's gonna get easy to where you can do, you'll have ops people going in and saying, I want this kind of agent running in my department. So it'll take time, but the jobs where you're the one creating those agents, and that stuff will be there, right? So if you're already in a technical field, that's a natural pivot you can make, and you're still building solutions, right?
Right. So if we try and understand it, suppose from a privacy point of view, can AI be used along with already available equipments in terms of surveillance, keeping an eye on citizens? A lot of people are a bit apprehensive about these things in different parts of the world. Already people are talking about that in terms of currencies, in terms of different aspects of our life, everything can be not just monitored in terms of positive way, but it can be also misutilized. And the way we have seen social media impacting democracies, elections, whether with consent or not consent, but obviously some of these platforms are making huge amount of money. So people want to understand AI from that direction. Now people may say, okay, we are doing everything fine from our end, everything is very clean. But on ground, the situation might be different, as we have seen in terms of social media. So how do you see this part of innovation as well as basic ethics that people might might be looking at? Where is the responsibility part? Who factors in this responsibility? Who decides on this responsibility? Whereas you see within the AI community itself, Geoffrey Hinton himself, the godfather of artificial intelligence, he himself has raised concern. Elon Musk has raised concern. Even Sam Altman has said, that if it goes wrong, it can go wrong quite a bit. So help us understand. You are the thought leader in technology. Guide us. How should we look at ethics and AI innovation, that is responsible innovation?
Yeah, you brought up some great points there. So when you're talking about social media and private business, it's like you can decide if you want to use that platform. So for example, if you go on Facebook, they'll publish that they use AI to moderate content, but they don't really explain how, right? So there's a lack of transparency there. So they're not saying what data is being used, what decision points are being made. So if you're okay with using a platform like that, you can certainly do that. For me, I want to understand how are you doing these things, right? And data privacy has been a problem, right? So AI has maybe compounded that from a sense of like, you know, how what are you doing with this data? Um, has always been there, but now, there's an issue where decisions are being made based on this data. So it's not just I'm being sold to an advertiser. You have situations. I don't like to get into politics too much, but there's a certain country that's in a war right now that's using AI to target and take out enemies, right? How do you ensure no bad actors get in there? How do you know there's not bias in there, right? So these are scary things, and you can't control that because it's the government, right? And I think that's where trying to get the world on the same page about ethics is going to be a challenge. I unfortunately don't have a solution for that. That's where the scary part comes in. But these private businesses, you can just choose not to use their tools, right? Not to do business with them. We don't have to go on social media and give them all of our information and click on the ads and buy the things they're trying to sell us. So yeah, I would say, again, and the tough part is, I go back to the food situation. People don't read labels on what they eat. You go to a restaurant, you don't ask what the ingredients are. Most people don't. Most people go on social media. They don't read the terms of service. They don't go dig through the knowledge base to see if there is transparency on how AI is being used. So it's going to take, us as a society to step up also and be responsible for what we put our information into and the types of companies we decide to work with.
Right, right. Let's move on from this part to understand how, in a positive way we can look at. So at present, how can businesses actually utilize artificial intelligence beyond the creation of content? Now I think we have talked a lot about content creation as the thing that businesses can use, but beyond that, what are the use businesses can have, small businesses especially? Can you think of success stories beyond the use of generating content from artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I think everyone's probably tired of hearing about chatbots, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of things out there. I mean, we talked a little bit about Amazon supply chain management, right? That's been around for a long time. None of us, when we get our package 2 days later, we don't think about all the algorithms and machine learning that's happening in the background. But healthcare, there's a lot. I read something the other day about voice detection being used to, find potential markers for Alzheimer's for early detection, right? That's really exciting. If you're a radiologist, using machine learning to faster diagnose things on the radiology reports, right? So those are really exciting things that are being used, experimented with. In our practice at RevStar, we're helping customers with things, probably not to the scale of Amazon, but we have a customer that does supply chain and last mile delivery for pharmaceuticals. And, we're actually working on technology that would make dispatching decisions, the best route to use, which driver to give the package to. So, that's another one of those situations where some jobs may be displaced, but we'll be able to make better decisions, save customers time, money, and that'll open up time for those folks to work on other things in the business. So that's one thing that we're like actively working on. But there's so many great use cases for it outside of content and chat bots. We talked a little bit earlier about the risk analysis for loans. There's always people experimenting with financial analysis, financial advice, which, take it for what it is. But that's one of those ones you want to be very transparent about. If it's being trained by very savvy financial analysts, might be better advice. If it's being trained by a bunch of guys giving financial advice on YouTube, so, that's one of those situations where we all, like I said, we have to read the label on what we're using.
Right, Ken. So let's move to RevStar. Tell us a bit about RevStar. What is it that you are doing here?
So at RevStar, we're an IT services company. So we've done everything from software development to cloud migration, building cloud native solutions, and then for the last year or so, really getting into Gen AI. We did machine learning in the past. We're getting more into the deeper learning, and so a lot of what we're doing right now is just looking at customers we service, trying to find ways we can help them with Gen AI, make their businesses more efficient, more scalable, more cost effective.
Right. Now, as a technology person, someone who knows in and out of this whole thing, do you at any point in time get a bit, overwhelmed by all these developments, a bit scared by the way things going on beyond the person that you are as a technology person, but just as a simple person, a family person, perhaps in that sense? Have you ever looked at it from that point of view?
I think, I talked a little bit earlier about AI being used to like target enemies, that kind of stuff is a little frightening. That makes it into the local police force, and now they're apprehending criminals based on AI, right? So you have to, that kind of, like I said, AI in the hands of the government's a little scary because sometimes they can't get on the same page about anything, right? But again, I'm not big into politics, but that kind of stuff, yeah, it keeps me up at night a little bit. As far as the tools and where they're at in business, I know a lot of people think AI is maybe like the Terminator, these movies where it takes over and there's apocalypse. I can tell you we're a far ways away from that. These are great tools. They're going to help out a lot. I've seen it just in the customers we work with, and what that'll do to transform their business. So I'd say, be scared of it, understand it. I said, read the label, start learning these technologies. You want to be ahead of the game and be the person programming the AI versus being displaced by it. So, you proceed with caution, but they're definitely great technologies. They're here to help us as a society.
Right. And for general people who are, using AI or not using AI, any particular suggestion that you may give who are, especially for people who are concerned about privacy? Or will it be the same thing about just as you use mobile phones? So you tell us about this. How do we look at AI from that, privacy point of view?
Well, I think, right now there's some countries have better data privacy laws than others. Uh, some companies are better about securing their data than others. I get letters all the time from companies like I don't even remember that had in my mortgage 5 years ago or something that, oh, we had a data breach. So sometimes you don't have a choice, right? I had no idea that I didn't get to go check if that company used the software that was SOC 2 compliant, right? So it's tough, when you don't always directly control the platform you're working with. But when you can, like I'll say it again, I know it sounds redundant, but read the label. Who are you working with, right? Do these people even have a privacy policy for their website? Like, are they taking very basic steps to ensure that you know that you understand what's happening with your information? If you're using a software platform, what types of compliance do they follow? Because a lot of times there's certain industries where there is no compliance standard, right? And look, a lot of people are still going to use tools and technology because they make life fun, make life easier, and that's okay. But it's always going to be a struggle when you have until we have really definitive, I think, good laws, good consensus. Ethics as a term in itself is somewhat a social norm, right, of what's right and what's wrong. And you have people with different perspectives and opinions, and countries that have different perspectives and opinions. So it's hard when you don't have everybody on the same page.
Right, right. There is much to learn about all these things. There is much to learn from you, and a lot of people would like to learn from you, understand more about your company, understand more about artificial intelligence. So, what's the best way for them to connect with you, Ken?
So you can connect with me. I have a personal website, kenpamela.com. You can see more about my story, RevStar's story, some thought leadership blogs that I post there. And I'm always open to having a conversation. I love to talk about this stuff, and kind of the way and help people navigate it, make sure they're not staying away from it because they're apprehensive about it. It's great technology to learn, and everybody's going to be impacted by it in some way.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.